Hey everyone, we're now almost over a month in since Classic Burning Crusade released. Personally, I reached level 70 on my hunter a while back. I'm now almost done with my pre-raid best in slot gear, and I'm currently in the process of leveling my second character, a paladin, to 70. But during the last few weeks, I learned a lot of new tips and tricks in the game, and I took care to take note of each one of them to bring them to you guys. Naturally, those will be more focused on endgame. We have a lot of dungeon tips on the list, attunement shortcuts, and a couple general tips that should be useful to everyone. So I guess it's time for another tips video, as you guys seem to enjoy our previous ones. So in no particular order, here's 10 classic TBC tips and tricks that will help you guys during your journey in Outland. Let's get started. Let's first start with the book Soothsaying for Dummies. If you're a leather worker or an engineer, or plan on leveling either of those eventually, you may want to know about this book. Let's start with leatherworking first. Picking the right specialization for leatherworking is crucial at endgame, so if you pick the wrong spec, or you dropped leatherworking once and now you can't pick a spec again because you already did the quest, this book is where you can solve that. You can find this book in Tenaris, in a small gnomish building north of the Steamvaults port. Interacting with this book if you have leatherworking but no specialization will allow you to pick the spec of your choice, given you have done one of the spec quests in the past. So how this is helpful is in two ways. One, you dropped leatherworking at some point and you already did one of the specialization quests, so you can't pick a spec again from the trainer. You go here and you can do that. Or two, if you want to switch specs, you can go to the spec trainer, tell them that you want to forget the spec that you currently have, go to this book and pick the one of your choice. This also works if you want to switch from goblin engineering to gnomish engineering and vice versa, but there's just one big catch with those. The spec trainers don't allow you to unlearn goblin or gnomish engineering, so you actually have to unlearn engineering altogether, level it up again, and then go to this book and pick what you want. I know it's annoying, but that's the only way. Moving on, let's talk about the Eladari tabard. If you don't know how to get this item, which is in my opinion the best looking tabard in the game as of now, go ahead and check our 8 secret, rare and fun items video. We talked about that there, but what we didn't talk about is what to do if the chest at the end contains the tabard collar that you don't want, since there's actually 2 collars of tabards and one of them might not fit your gear. In that case, it's pretty simple really, but it only works if you haven't picked the tabard yet. I know most of you already have if you did this quest, but keep this in mind for your future characters. It turns out that contents of chests like these reset every couple hours, so really all you need to do is open the chests without auto loot, check if the tabard is the one you want. If it isn't, just close the chest, come back to it a couple hours later, check again, and do that until the color you want is there. On the topic of quests, one important quest that a lot of melees and hunters will want to do is Deathblow for the Legion, where you have to kill Socrethar in Netherstorm. This quest gives the pre-raid bis ring for many classes. The only problem is that this guy is pretty tough. In most cases, you'll need 5 players with you to kill him, including a tank and a healer. But did you know you can get credit for him even if you don't have the tag? I discovered this while helping another group that was currently on the quest to speed things up. After killing Socrethar, which I did not have the tag for, the quest credit just popped up and I could just turn in the quest in Shatrat, even though I didn't tag it myself. Now I'm not sure whether this is a bug or whether it's intended, but take advantage of this if you want to get this quest done. Just wait near Socrethar until a group of players shows up to kill him. Help them after they pull and you should receive the quest credit. As I said, I'm not sure whether this is intended or if it's a bug. For all I know, it could already be fixed. But if it is a bug, this should push Blizzard to fix it ASAP. And if it's not, there's the tip. The next quest I want to talk about is the attunement for Karazhan, specifically the second and third Fragments quest. So I think by now you all know how the Karazhan attunement goes. You do a few quests outside Karazhan, then you go to Shatrat, Khadgar asks you to get 3 fragments from 3 different dungeons, you get those, you then go to Black Morass, you go back to Khadgar and you have your key. So for the first fragment, not much can be done. It's at the very end of Shadow Labyrinth. I believe you can skip the last boss if you're really struggling with him and just hug the left wall and summon the Fragment Guardian, but otherwise you'll have to clear the whole instance. But for the second and third fragment, that's where you can save some time. For those fragments, you'll have to go to Steamvault and Arcatraz. But the thing is, those arcane containers are actually quite close to the entrance for both dungeons, so you could actually solo this. Well, at least for Steamvault. Just buy a few invisibility potions from the auction house, or just stealth if you're a class that can do that, and head to the arcane container in the water by following the path I'm taking right now. For Architraz, I tried this myself, and you can do this to an extent, but it will only work if you're a hunter who can feign death or a rogue who can vanish, since there's an Arcatraz sentinel on the way who will pull you out of stealth, even if you're using an invis potion. The Fragment Guardians are level 70 elites, but they should easily be soloable for most classes. If you can't solo them, just get one friend of yours, give them some invis potions, and that should be enough for you to kill this mob. Obviously, to be fair, in most cases, it's gonna be easier for you to just find a regular group and get this done while doing the rest of the instance. But if you somehow can't find a group or you just don't want to, there's the tip for you. Next, let's talk about the daily heroic dungeon quest. For those who don't know, this NPC in Shatrat gives a different daily every day to clear a specific heroic dungeon, and once you do that, you'll be rewarded with 2 badges of justice. This is the most efficient way to farm badges if you have limited time. At first, I thought those had a specific rotation, but they seem to be completely random. In EU, we got the Black Morass quest I believe 5 times in the last 2 weeks. So much fun. So because it's so random, one tip I wanted to mention is that you should always pick the quest that you'll be the most comfortable doing. Even if you're not gonna do it in that day, you can still complete it at any time as long as it's in your quest log. For example, Black Morass is probably among the hardest dungeons to do, so I wouldn't recommend picking that quest. But if the quest for, say, Slave Pens or Auchenite Crypts pops up, even if you don't have enough time to do those that day, if you do them eventually, you will have their quest in your quest log, and you'll be able to get them done in the process. Alright, speaking of dungeons, let's talk about some dungeon tips, starting with Steamvault. If you're not after reputation and you just want to get this dungeon over with as fast as possible, you can actually skip a large portion of the trash in this dungeon. First, instead of going through the middle where all the mobs are in the first room, turn to the right as you kill the first 2 guards, and you should see a giant bug lord. Kill that guy, then kill the one after him, then proceed by staying to the right, and that should allow you to skip a big portion of the mobs in this first room. Next, after you kill the first boss, jump in the water to the left as you exit the boss room, and follow the path in the water. This should lead you to an underwater tunnel where you can exit close to the second boss room. After you kill the second boss, go back through the normal path this time and just go to the last boss room by killing any trash on the way. Steamvault becomes way faster this way. Also, a small bonus tip, these sirens here are the ones who fear you all the time, so you might want to deal with them first to not pull unnecessary mobs. Next dungeon and next tip is in Arcatraz. It's no secret that the last boss is a pain to do, and if you wipe on him, you'll have to start the event all over again. If you have a hunter in your group, or if you're a hunter yourself, you're in luck. Ask the hunter to use a snake trap once the boss splits into multiple copies of himself. When the boss splits is when groups usually start to struggle, as each copy will start casting Mind Flay on a random player. If a hunter uses a snake trap, there's a high chance that those copies will target a snake instead of a player, thus helping out your healer a ton and increasing your odds of killing this boss, if you've been struggling with him. Good luck. The last dungeon to talk about is obviously Black Morass. This one is a real pain. Anyone who did it knows what I'm talking about. Thankfully, there's a lot of things you can apply to make your life easier here. First, as soon as you enter the dungeon, you may have noticed this NPC who gives you a chrono beacon. Obviously, make sure to pick one. They will help you a lot. These will summon a bronze dragon that will deal a lot of damage to the mobs and also halt aggro on them for the whole duration. So since you only have 5 beacons in a group, there's 2 options you can go with as to when to use those beacons. First, you could use them on the last 5 waves. Those last 5 waves tend to be the toughest as they contain the most Rift Lords, and assigning each player to a specific wave is easy. The second option is to just use them whenever you see a Rift Lord, but this can get iffy as you might have 2 players use them at the same time, and you don't want that to happen, so it's up to you what to choose. The next Black Morass tip is that hunters can actually trank shot the last boss in rage. The last boss hits really hard and randomly stuns everyone for 4 seconds, so you really don't want to deal with his in rage on top of that. If you have a hunter in your group, ask them to use tranquilizing shot the moment they see this buff going up on the boss. Obviously, also just general tips on this boss, have your tank always face him away as the boss does a scent breath and a cleave, and also have your healer always focus the tank at all times. Having a DPS die is not the end of the world, but having the tank die is a guaranteed wipe. Finally, and I learned this very recently, if you actually wipe repeatedly in here and Medivh's shield reaches 0%, the instance is not lost forever. Medivh respawns a few minutes after his shield reaches 0. So if you've been doing this on Heroic and thus got locked on your ID and your group wiped repeatedly, the ID isn't lost forever. Just wait for Medivh to respawn and go at it again. Obviously, you'll have to start from the beginning, but at least your ID isn't lost like I thought it was a few days ago, until a friend of mine told me about this. And that's the last tip on my list. If you guys have more useful tips like these, make sure to drop them in the comments. That way other people can benefit from them and I may include them in a future video too. As usual, if you like this video, give it a like and subscribe to the Classic While Curious channel for more content like this. I will see you guys in the next one very soon. Bye for now.